Creator, Redeemer, Creator of this beautiful world in which we find ourselves, Creator of all of the entire planet and the entire universe, who created man and woman in your likeness, and gave us this commandment to care for the earth, not to destroy it, but to care for the earth, to provide a better environment, to care for the animals, the creation, to be also aware of our dignity as co-creators with you in work. You have given us that unique dignity to work with you in building a better world with our hands. We pray especially those tonight, Lord, as we reflect on what the church teaches on work, that we recognize our call to respect the rights of all workers, whether that be through unions or decent wages or good working conditions. And we pray especially for all the victims of injustice in our world, including our own country and our city, for people who work many part-time jobs, don't have insurance, health care, etc., and who find it very difficult. So we ask that you bless this evening, open our ears to hear your word, open our hearts to share your spirit, and we pray this as always through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Father, Son.
Thank you, Father Mike. So, welcome to St. Peter and Paul. If you haven't been here before, it's really beautiful. You may not know because you're down in the basement, but I promise it is. So this is actually my parish. I live on the east side. I'm just down there. And Father Mike is one of our pastors here. He really gets it. So he's been involved in Hispanic Latino ministry in town and really gets the social justice piece. So we're glad to have him here. So what we're going to do, we've got three kind of sections to this. So I am going to do a little piece on Catholic social teaching, and some of this may be familiar to you, some of it may be new. We have a wide range of people here. Some of you are really engaged in the community and social justice work, some of you are really involved in parish work, all different kinds of experiences. So some of this may be new to you, some of it may be old hat, I'm not sure. But it's going to give us a little framework. And then as you go back to the organizations that you're active in, you think about the different kinds of activities you're engaged in, maybe some of this language will be helpful to you as you work with Catholics or other people of faith. So as Andrew said, I teach at Mount Mary in philosophy, and we've got some Mount Mary folks here too, which is lovely. And I wear a lot of different hats, so I'm active in other community organizations. And we can talk more about that if you like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through one encyclical and give you a little bit of context here. And then after I've done this, we've got Laura Bonilla, who's there in the red. Good waving. And we'll introduce him again in a minute, but Lauro works with Voces de la Frontera in town, so he's involved in immigrant rights work, as well as United Electrical Workers, regional and national.
I'm a labor union.
Labor union person. Yep. Yep. So he's a good leader in our community. He's done a lot of this good work. Goes to San Rafael Parish. And on really last minute notice, I'm really grateful that the Fight for 15, Raise Up MKE, was willing to send a couple people to speak. So we've got kind of a three-part panel here. So we'll get to hear about the fast food workers' struggle as well. All right. Now, I hope you'll be patient with my PowerPoint because I never lecture with PowerPoint. I'm a Blackboard scrawler, but that's not really good for big presentations. So I'm going to do this, but I have to remember how you show a slideshow. It's view, right? Nope, it's slideshow. Okay, there we go. Is it there? Okay. All right. Back up. All right, so I've titled this The Priority of Labor Over Capital, which is not my terminology, it's actually Pope John Paul II's. I really love that phrase, and we can talk about that. And I'm taking it from this encyclical 1981, Laborem Exercens, or On Human Work. If you're interested in this, and you want to do a little more research on this, or you want to be able to use some of this, I'm going to move this over here so I don't stand over the light, and you want to do some research on this, the best book on this encyclical, the one that I'm stealing just a whole chunk of this stuff from, is called The Priority of Labor by Gregory Baum. It includes the encyclical in the second half. also, when I do some sort of big, more historical, like contexty stuff, I'm using a lot of this book, which is a really good book, not too well known, but Thomas Bokenpotter's Church and Revolution. Gives a history of how the Catholic Church formed Catholic social teaching as a response to people's movements, workers' movements, after the French Revolution. So really showing that Catholic social teaching doesn't just kind of shine in the heavens and then fall down to the sky, but the historical development of Catholic social teaching as a response to struggle. And I guess the third thing, actually, some of you may know this. This is Catholic social teaching, our best kept secret. If any of you work with Catholics in social justice ministries and need some good language to use, this is the Cliff Notes to Catholic social teaching. And it's not completely up to recent stuff, but it's pretty updated. So it's pretty good, and I love that term, our best kept secret, because I think most Catholics have no idea that their popes have said you should belong to a union, you have a right to strike, you have a certain wage you ought to be paid, you should be paid if you are a mother, just for being a mother, or being a parent, a stay-at-home parent, you should be paid for that. So it's really our best kept secret, because most people don't.
Should we pay equal no matter if the women or men? Right?
Absolutely, absolutely, right? So, so as you may know, Catholic social teaching goes back about 100 years. And this document that I'm talking about here is written on the anniversary, roughly, of Rerum Novarum, or on the condition of labor, which was kind of the first document of Catholic social teaching. So it's important as we think about Catholic social teaching to realize that we're not just thinking about something that's, throughout the whole history of the Catholic Church. You can find early people in the Catholic Church saying, church fathers saying, oh, everyone has a right to wealth, and wealth is given to society and should be shared equally. But Catholic social teaching is a really recent phenomenon, and it's really specific. And it's a response to the rise of unions and the rise of workers' struggles. So what we're doing in Laborem Exercens, and by the way, I'm not putting this forward as like the solution. What I'm doing is I'm giving you a framework. And I don't think you have to sort of read Laborem Exercens like, oh, well, this is, everything 100% that Catholics are required to believe about the economy or something. But I want you to kind of understand where he's coming from. So what he's saying is, look, this is 1981, and we know 1981 is Reagan in the US, and it's the end of the Cold War. And we know Pope John Paul II is Polish. So part of the background reality to this encyclical is that Poland is having its own organizing and uprising against the Soviet Union, the Solidarity movement. So you have people that are striking. No. That's not a gesture, be louder, okay.
Sorry.
If I do need to be louder, do the hand gesture. So there's a framework here in terms of that, but I think it can get overplayed. So I don't think it would be a mistake to see this as just an anti-communist encyclical. What he's trying to do is he's trying to say, look, there has to be some alternative to Reagan-style capitalism in the United States and Soviet-style state control, and there has to be some sort of third way alternative. So Baum, whom I referenced earlier, calls this Pope John Paul II socialism. So he's talking about a kind of socialism. Not Marxist, but a kind of socialism. And this, by the way, that's not really a new thing. So all of Catholic social teaching has always been critical of extreme laissez-faire capitalism and of Soviet-style communism. So that's always been the case. All right. So in this document, we get a philosophical framework, on the one hand, about what it means to be a human being. And the human person is fundamentally a worker, a laborer in this document. So this means labor isn't just something you are paid to do. Labor is an expression of your humanity. So the action of making history, of being involved in social movements, intellectual labor, artistic work, scientific discovery, mopping the floor at home, all of that gets encompassed into labor. So labor is both manual and intellectual. It's uniquely human. So animals scrambling around gathering twigs to make nests are not doing labor in this sense. This is a dignified activity where we shape our history and we shape who we are through acting in the world. So he says all labor has dignity, it bears the image of God, even God labors. And he talks about Jesus as the carpenter and the creation as labor, so that from the very beginning God is laboring, resting and laboring. Through labor, human beings carry out their unique vocation to subdue the earth, as stated in Genesis. So this is kind of his philosophical framework. This is, you can find some of this stuff in just Genesis or whatever, right? Some of it's Bible stuff, some of it's Catholic tradition. Aquinas is certainly an influence here. I think it's also hard to deny the influence of Marx. So that's not to say that the Pope is a Marxist, because he's not, but the idea that labor is fundamentally the driving force of history, that we become who we are through labor, is definitely an influence of Karl Marx on this document. And through the Polish influence, because you've got people in Poland reading Marx, trying to reclaim Marx for something other than straight Soviet communism.
Can I add something? I think before the Pope was elected, when he was at the conclave, he was reading Karl Marx's, so in other words, he knew he knew his material.
Thank you for that, yeah. So there's a whole kind of discussion going on this time period, how to kind of form some sort of humanistic, third way kind of socialism, and using Marx critically but thoughtfully and so on. So then we get this wonderful formulation, the priority of labor over capital. So labor is done by people. Capital is stuff made by people. So human beings, as people, living people with dignity, worth, value, always have priority over capital. And that's, to some extent, just basic Catholic teaching forever. Like St. Thomas Aquinas says there's no absolute right to private property. Property exists to serve human needs. Now, as we think about this, though, he's saying, look, the human being comes first, so we have to think about how to use capital to serve human needs. Concretely, what this means is we can't simply sit back uncritically and assume that the market will do everything. We don't get to say, oh, don't worry, the market will just, as long as people just participate in the market, everything will be fine. What we have to do is we have to think critically about how we can make the market serve human needs. Because the market's a dead thing made by people. And people are really the reason why we set up society on this view. And again, he wants to stress that people are individuals with individual worth and dignity. So he's always kind of walking this line where he's trying to say, I'm not with the Soviet Union on this, I'm not with the US, and I don't think you're just simply a part of an economic class or a workforce. You're not just part of the team. Every single person has value and worth. This is kind of where his personalism, philosophy of personalism, comes through. All right. So in terms of kind of concrete economic proposals, he tells us we may need to be open to nationalization of some industries if it will serve the common good. And Braune notes that this is sort of an evolution of Catholic social teaching, that early Catholic social teaching emphasized more that we would need to, was more concerned with government power, and that over time, Catholic social teaching became more comfortable with saying that corporations were a threat to the common good, and that the government might need to tamp down on capital. He says we should have worker cooperatives and workplace democracy. He talks about credit unions. Nowadays we might think about experiments like Mondragon in Spain, which was founded by a priest, and they have collective work producing all different kinds of things in the vast region of Spain. They come together and vote for their bosses, this kind of thing. So notice this is very different from just being told, hi, welcome to Applebee's. We don't just call you an employee here, we call you an associate. We're going to give you a share in the company after 2 years. This is like, you vote for your boss. And at the same time, we have to, he says, kind of have this balance where at the same time that we've got local cooperation, small, decision-making at the business, local worker level, we also need socialization. So we need a planned economy. And there are certain things that can only be done at the higher government levels, like organizing transportation and environmental cleanup and things. So there's a kind of dialectic here of subsidiarity and socialization. Now, subsidiarity, stop me if I'm going on too long, I'm going to stop in just a second. Subsidiarity gets often misunderstood, I think. So, for example, as Paul Ryan was slashing food stamps and so forth, and got called out by the bishops for it, he said, well, look, I'm a Catholic, I'm for subsidiarity. That means the government shouldn't decide things and businesses should decide things. That's not what subsidiarity means. Subsidiarity means decisions should be made at the lowest possible level, but when those decisions can't be made justly or rationally at the lowest level, they should be made at higher levels. So subsidiarity includes the idea of a planned economy. At the same time, it includes the idea of workplace democracy. All right, so very concretely, very specifically, these are some of the rights that workers should have according to the document. Universal employment, including for intellectuals, artists, professionals, scientists, and people with disabilities. You have a right to a job. You have a right to leave your country in search of work. You have a right to emigrate. You have a right to just remuneration, which includes not just wages, but health care, vacation time, and other benefits. And this includes for parents, like we said, for farm workers. He has a whole section on farm workers, all different areas of life. So if you are working hard, you should be being paid justly and fairly. And just wages in Catholic tradition are not what the market says you can pay and get away with it. It's a higher standard than that. It's what you can pay people and let them live in dignity and feel like they have worth. You have a right to union membership, public and private sector. Now notice what he's saying here. Partially he's writing about Poland, right? Because he wants to say, well look, the Polish workers may be employed by the Soviet state, but they still have a right to strike. But thinking about our context today, I don't think we get to have a loophole out of this and say, well, public workers are different than private workers. You can unionize if you work for, Campbell's Soup, but you can't unionize if you're a public teacher. I don't think Catholic social teaching personally supports that view. So you have a right to union membership regardless of who your employer is, the state or the private sector. And you have a right to strike without being punished or fired or whatever for it. Our best kept secret. Okay, finally, conclusion. Kind of a cliche little thing at the top there, but basically what I want to stress here is Catholic social teaching is not the way I picture some of my students thinking about it. I think they picture, the Pope goes into a little room, he reads the Bible, he says a prayer, the heavens open, there's a light that shines down, and then the words come down, oh, you should support unions or something from on high. But what we have to think about in terms of Catholic social teaching is that it's always a response to social movements. So it's not that we're simply, passive recipients of these documents. But these documents were created as a response to conditions and struggles and movements. Anybody here do St. Vincent de Paul Society stuff? Yeah, so Frederick Ozanam, really interesting guy. He's really trying to figure out, he's got a newspaper, he's trying to figure out how can the church respond to the needs of the poor and the French Revolution and all of these social changes without simply, in a way that goes beyond beyond just handouts, right? How do we think about social justice on a big scale? Cardinal Manning, Dorothy Day, Cesar Chavez, liberation theology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole tradition, Boken Cotter's got more stuff if you're interested, of Catholic social teaching being shaped by the laity, by ordinary people, by social movements. Okay, so I realize that's very specific to Catholic social teaching and kind of historical and possibly kind of academic. So I'm sorry about that because I actually am a social movement person. But that's a framework you may be able to use in some of your work. I think what I'm going to do, if we can, we've got 2 more little presentations, so I think if you could save your questions, I know it's hard, but save your questions, and then we'll have plenty of time for discussion after everyone's gone. So Lauro, let me just say one again, Lauro Bonilla works with Voces de la Frontera.
Yeah, I work in volunteer, working out from there for anything, election and everything over there.
With everything over there.
Yeah.
And, thank you.
Special membership. I need to have a more membership, working out from there.
Yes, which
I collect memberships,
would be an excellent idea
organized.
for people that want to work on these issues.
Mhm.
Regional and national leadership of United Electrical
And
Workers.
national levels, the electrical workers need,
Excellent.
okay?
All right, so why don't you just come share some
I
stuff?
can share some stuff.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I supposed to do it in Spanish, but most of the people I think it's English, right? All right, so I'm gonna do it in English. I'm switching. So my name is Lauro Bonilla. I'm in the labor movement for more than 11 years. I'm a local president union. Also, I'm a secretary of board national level and secretary of board region level. So I'm be elected every year. We elect every year the position because the position only for a year. Okay. And also I'm a member of Voces de la Frontera. I'm organized to have more members, especially right now. We're struggling for money. We're struggling for everything. So we don't have nothing come out from nowhere except for the community. Community support Voces de la Frontera. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about all the struggles people coming from different countries, especially from Mexico, how we come here in the United States. Okay? And also, I'm going to talk a little bit about the immigration issue later on. First, I'm going to talk to my own experience when I come from Mexico to the United States, how I come here. I come illegal here in the United States. We crossed to the border for Tijuana, Baja California, and coming from the mountains, walking for 3 days. And one day, the guys that's the coyotes, you know, the guys that take the people here, disappear for 3 days. They never show up. We got like 15 people there. We always only eat avocados for 3 days. And not even ready yet for eat, but we still eating something. So we there for 3 days like that, and to one coyote come out, they say, that's ready to cross the border. That's what we do, and you know, the people, there's some much bad and some much bad, because someone coming from Arizona, someone coming from another cross borders. And someone coming for across the desert, and the die, another comes on the vans, and the trunk of the car. It's all the struggle. And that's why this one of the reasons we gotta have a dignity here in the United States, because no matter what color they are, no matter where you come from, everybody has one car, and the car always the same, should be the same. That's the same color inside, right? And that's one of the reasons, you know, I've been on the labor movement for a long time, like 11 years, you know, because I saw how the guys, big guys, corporation treat the people, especially in my workplace. So there's I become like that in the labor movement because I saw the people that start, they said, if you don't have no social security, if you don't have the right social security, you don't have the right to work here. That's why I come and be, especially for immigration issues, I'm being in the movement. And then especially in the union side, in our union, I become like I'm the ones, all the issues, immigration reform, national level and local levels, I'm the one raise the voice, I raise my voice, and I always fight for. And last time I was shut down ICE. Right now, because the DACA, all the new laws coming out, DAPA and DACA, and it's still hanging on like that, because they don't want to pass those Republicans. And we shut it down ICE for one day, because I tried not to get jailed to make him, make my voice right. Okay, make my voice more hard. But I don't go to jail, I get tired to be sitting over there on the doors. Don't let him pass nobody over there, but I don't go to the jail. Well, I gotta go talk to the workplace, labor movement. The labor is kind of hard sometimes. When you don't have no documentation in the workplace, they try to load your wages more. They try you can pay last month. And for me, that's not right. That's not right because everybody do the same job. Why you guys gonna pay the guy that has no documentation like $3 or $4 less? So that's why I be involved in the union because I can sit down on the table, and I collect bargaining. To tell those rich guys, to tell this, those owners of companies, everybody have a right to have to make the same money. No matter what kind of job, as long as you do the same job, you gotta pay this guy, you gotta pay this guy equally. And I'll be around over here, I'll be participating in a church too. Especially I'm coming from San Rafael Church. I'm a member for there. And I have a group of men, we always pray on the evening times and Friday at 7 o'clock for 2 hours. And we do those kind of, we read the Bible, also we come on those issues, who's struggling in the life and the family. Especially when you don't make enough good money, you don't have not enough to pay the house, to have a right, decent house. You don't have the right to have a nice car. You don't have a right to send the school, to universities, to the family to school. And that's why we do it. That's why we do it. Those kind of very important to have a union in the workplace because union always want to fight for you. Union always step up for you. But some people they don't understand, especially those guys owners of the companies, big corporations, they don't understand because they're gonna pay less money if you don't have no union. And it's one of the struggles I am right now. I'm the last people on my workplace. I will fight for the guys, I will fight for the workers because the workers fear to step up because they don't have no documentation. And I still fight. So the new owner for this company, I get fired for. I'm going to collect them and then collect employment right now because I'm the top union guy that will fight for the rights. So if you can get rid of this guy, we don't have to pay them much money. So right now, it's kind of that we have a complaint when the government and everything, hopefully I can go back to work soon because we put a charge in the national level. And they said they're looking good, probably we gotta go back to work and I'm still gonna fight for those guys in the workplace. So that's what I do, especially, I went to Washington DC like 4 times, talk to the legislative guys, senators, and our representatives over there to explain how important it is to have a decent wages. especially when we struggled, they said they want to get rid of the Social Security too. When they said they're gonna be dropping Social Security, they're gonna put it down, less money for the guys to retire and stuff. And I've been fighting for it too, because everybody had to have a decent wages or decent money come every month. I've been talking to the government, I've been talking everywhere. We in the march, all we march, for the dignity, because we got to be solidarity to everyone. That's what I do every time, and that's what I keep them doing, and that's what I try to people involve all the community to do the same way. Because when you do only 2-3 persons, it's not good. You gotta have involved to everyone to do those kind of stuff. So, and then I'm here for right now, especially right now, we're gonna fight more for the migration. I don't know if you heard something about the DACA. They said they're gonna do something for that, especially DACA, the new law, the president do, and the judge stopped over there. Now they're going to the Washington D.C. to make a decision, and the Supreme Court. And they're gonna be effective in July. And July, well, either it's July 5th, after the 4th of July, they're gonna make a decision. So we gotta do some more stuff to force those people, people come on legal, out of the shadow, and they can make a little more decent wages. Because otherwise, they're gonna keep and do the same thing, that people are gonna make more, less money, people they don't have no documentation, they're gonna make more, less money, and the people don't have the documentation. So hopefully you guys stand with me and everybody, talk to the community. We gotta do something about it, okay? And not be willing to help everyone, and that's what I expect to everyone, to be helped with us to continue to fight for, okay? Human right is a human right. And I believe in a union, and I believe 100% until I die. And that's what I gotta do. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we have Jennifer F. Addison. And Mary, thank you. So,
And I don't know what's
you
happening
are
there. So I'm not actually sure what.
Let's do it for a while.
All right. So good evening and buenas noches, everyone. I'm Jennifer F. Addison. I'm the executive director of a community organizing group called Wisconsin Jobs Now. We are, I guess, a proudly militant, direct action-based organization that believes the best way to build the society we want is through our works and through our demands. And so, I think we believe really strongly in the teaching that faith without works is dead. And so we live every day to actually demonstrate through our works the type of society that we want to create. I'm also a strong Catholic. I always like to joke that on my mother's side, I come from a small German Catholic family of 7. Those of you who remember small German Catholic families know that's actually really a joke because it is small. My mother's family grew up in a farming community just outside of Madison called Milwaukee. And my grandmother Mary grew up in the South, but she came here during the Great Migration and had my father here, and they both converted to Catholicism with Father Grappi when my dad was being a red shot kid in the NAACP Youth Council, and felt very tied and very connected to this idea that we don't have to sort of accept what is laid out for us, that there is a higher path for us. So we're just really honored to be here, and I'm going to have Miss Mary come up and introduce herself. Okay, I'm going to need you to sit down.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Coleman. I'm one of the leaders for the Fight for 15 to raise the minimum wage and the rights to form a union. and also to fight for our communities, upbringing. Cause, I'm a mother of 3, a grandmother of 6. I worked hard all my life. I worked in the work field since I was 14 years old. And to have to work all the time, all my life, and still reach the age of 61, I still gotta get a $7.25 an hour job. What can I do with that? So, I joined the movement. When I joined the movement on that basis, because of me being a grandmother out here competing with teenagers, that was rough. It's hard. It's really hard. And then have to pay doctor bills, rent, gas, lights, pay whatever, dentures, whatever it costs, So making $7.25 was not pushing the issue. Then I was forced to live with my daughter and her 2 children, which my daughter, she's had open heart surgery. She's on tons of medication, and and I'm dealing with her situation, 2 kids, and I'm about the job, and I'm about some peace of mind, So I joined the movement to fight not only for myself, but for those that's coming behind me in the same situation that I'm in which there is a lot of us. And it's not about skin color, it's about what's in the heart. And my heart grieves for all, because I feel these kids out here today, they don't deserve what they're getting. They do not deserve it. And the babies, what they're getting, they definitely don't deserve it. And this is where it's hitting hard at. If it's not us, it's them. The ones in between, they got it kind of made. But the fight is for the ones that's coming to have what they deserve to have. So with that, back to Jennifer.
All right.
I just want to take a second quick to just acknowledge the work that Miss Mary has done. She's being a bit modest, but in the 2 years since the Fight for 15 took off, I think when we first started, we actually had no idea the impact that this movement would have on this country. We remember our friends and our relatives and the people who cared for and loved us actually laughing in our faces when we told them that we were going to get $15 an hour for home care workers and janitors and security guards and fast food workers. And good meaning, liberal, progressive people saying, well, it just is never going to happen. You should go for something you could actually win. Credit goes to workers like Miss Mary, who said, I'm not going for what you tell me is possible, I'm going for what I deserve, and standing up and taking on that fight. And since they have done that, not only in just 2 years have we actually won 15 in places like Seattle and San Francisco. Last week we just won 15 in LA. But we're winning raises for workers in places that nobody ever thought was possible, like Nebraska, for instance, in North Dakota. And it's, I think more than that, we're transforming the idea of work and restoring it back to what we just learned are a part of the Catholic social teachings, this idea that there is dignity in all labor, that there is an interconnectedness in all of the work that we do, that you can't actually have a strong and vibrant and healthy faith community if the people within your community don't have basic needs met. So Miss Mary has been a national leader. She's not only a leader here in Wisconsin, but actually was one of just 5 workers who introduced a bill into Congress last session called the Fair Scheduling, Fair Work Week Act. It goes directly to this idea that not only are low-wage workers having trouble making ends meet because they're making poverty wages, but also because they have no security in their schedules. And so she was able to help introduce a bill that would have guaranteed full-time work to workers, that would have guaranteed them the ability to request off if they have a health issue or another job or school. And there is a version of that bill that will be coming to Wisconsin. So that's because of people like Ms. Mary. So I just want to give you that. So I want to just quickly, hey Kingston, can you take mommy's purse right there and go give it to daddy? The keys, thank you. I want to give a little broad context for the economy because I think that it's important that we have the tools to actually speak up and speak out against some of the misinformation that is out there about how our economy works, about how our economy works and what's going on in our economy. So currently, a lot of people just think we're broke, right? We had to pass Act 10, we had to take away and strip rights away from workers because we just couldn't afford all those greedy teachers and their lavish lifestyles, right? Well, that is actually just patently false. Our country is richer than it's ever been before, and in terms of the gross domestic product that we produce, we're still the #1 economy in the world. However, the way that our economy is distributed has changed dramatically from the movement that expanded the middle class to the biggest middle class in the world in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And so we are currently at a rate of unsustainable inequality, where the richest in this country are actually making more than they've ever made, and the gap between the richest and the poorest is as wide as it has ever been in our country, even wider than the first Great Depression. Corporate profits and the stock market is at an all-time high by all accounts. Our economy should have recovered. We should all be reaping the benefits of it, and yet most of us are not. Our Social Security system is not doing what it needs to do, is not keeping up with the pace of inflation, which means that people who are relying on that as sole income are now going out and getting jobs at places like Walmart and McDonald's because they can't meet the cost of living, even though they've put in their dues and should be retiring. One of the biggest things that people always say is that, how can we afford to raise wages to 15? It'll collapse the economy. Well, now we're lucky because we actually have proof that it doesn't, because we've done it in some places, and their economies are not only doing fine, they're actually some of the strongest in the country. But I just want to sort of give you a frame of reference. So McDonald's last year in 2014 made $5 billion with a B, dollars in profits. $5 billion just in profits. We're talking about after all your workers are paid and all the expenses, the bills are balanced, $5 billion. At the same time, the workers who work for their company were forced onto public assistance to the tune of $1.2 billion. Now this is just McDonald's. This doesn't even include the largest low-wage employer, Walmart. So when we look at the cost of these low wages to our economy, not only do we have families in crisis who can barely meet their ends meet, but then you have taxpayers who are subsidizing not actually the living of workers or the dignity of workers, but the profits of corporations. A company like McDonald's could have actually lifted every single worker on their payroll out of poverty and still made $3.8 billion in profits. So this isn't an issue of can we afford to do it, it's an issue of do we have the moral compass to ensure the dignity of every worker.
And I feel that if I'm capable of holding a job, an 8-hour job, can work an 8-hour job with no problem, why should I depend on public assistance? I should be able to go out and afford whatever I need, when I need it, and to have to depend on public assistance I work every day, and to go to a pharmacy and get talked to like I've been sitting on my butt all day, that hurts. And especially you don't work. You should deserve more respect, not only from the public, but the workplace too. It's disrespect, especially to someone my age, So we go through a lot. Raising the minimum wage, I think, would help not only with paying rent or whatever, but it also will help the community. It also will help children, get built back up. In our community, there's nothing for our children to do. They come home from school, that's it. After school, they have no life. They have nowhere to go. It's scared to put them outside because don't know what may happen. So if we as a community come back together and be a community, maybe we can upgrade Milwaukee. It's time for Milwaukee to rise up. It's time for Milwaukee to do what's right. So, study walking on the little people is not helping the big people. So we gotta work together. Who was that said, united we stand, divided we fall? We falling. We falling. So what are we gonna do about it? We're gonna fall or we're gonna rise up?
Rise up.
So the exciting thing about all of this is that our faith actually shows us the path forward and demonstrates not only how do we reclaim the dignity in our own labor, but how do we build an economy that works for everyone. And so, you have this movement of workers taking this incredible risk of going out on strike. And I want to lift up this idea that, when you stand up and you demand either recognition in a formalized union or in what we, in the worker organizing committee for the fast food workers, we're sort of an informal union, meaning that we don't have labor recognition, but we act like a labor union. So we go into work sites where there are unfair labor practices and we file charges along with workers. We march on the boss when the boss is sexually harassing a worker, for instance. We, as community, act as a protective shield for workers, but it is an incredible risk, right? Workers get fired and then they have to wait months and months for the National Labor Relations Board to make a decision. And a lot of times what that decision is a payoff. We'll pay you your back wages and give you a little bit extra and you go away. And a worker who hasn't had a paycheck for 2 or 3 months has to say, am I going to stay here and fight, or am I going to take that and move on? So one of the most important things that we can do to exercise our works and our faith is to actually get involved with these worker organizing committees and the community organizations like VOSAs and Wisconsin Jobs Now that support those workers. When they make a call, we say we have an action alert and we need everybody to show up to the Chick-fil-A, for instance, in Brookfield because they sent a worker home because she's wearing her hair in a traditionally African-American style. And so that was something that we had to do 2 weeks ago. And we were able to get her back to work, and she's got a case pending. But had she not been able to call us, she would have been either out the $100 it takes to braid your hair, or she wouldn't have been able to go back to work. So the other thing is that we can actually just look to our history. So many people don't know this, but the progressive movement in Wisconsin that brought us collective bargaining, that brought us unemployment compensation, that brought us workmen's compensation, was actually deeply inspired by the German Catholics and Polish Catholics that immigrated to Wisconsin. And so although Fighting Bob LaFollette was a Baptist, he actually took a lot of the construction of what we now call the Wisconsin idea from those teachings and from those faith leaders. They called them the insurgents, right? So these were Republican dairy farmers, largely, who were German and Polish Catholics, who became the insurgents in the Republican Party and birthed the progressive movement. So we can actually go back to that idea that we are deeply responsible for creating a just society and holding accountable politicians on all lines of the aisle. And I think one last thing is that it's important to understand that this idea of dignity at work and raising wages isn't a partisan issue. That Democrats haven't been much more friendly to these issues as Republicans had, which is a great place for us as people of faith to be, right? Because we can stay out of that partisan fray, and instead we can talk person to person, parishioner to parishioner, about the types of communities that we want to build and how we have to hold politicians of all parties accountable to building that. And lastly, I'll just say that we are in a moment with the Pope that we have, with Pope Francis right now, to revive youthful Catholicism, as I say, in a way that we haven't been in a long time. So to have a Pope who has spoken so passionately and so eloquently about the level of income inequality and the rights of workers and unionization, really does harken back to a movement when workers and faith leaders came together in the labor movement and completely changed the direction of this country. And I think that we are on the cusp of a resurgence of that movement, and we need folks to get involved in it. So, coming up, Wisconsin, we have introduced a $15 an hour minimum wage bill. Representative Melissa Sargent has introduced it, and we are going to be going across the state this summer in communities big and small, asking people to sign up and that they are in favor of this. We delivered 1.4 million signatures to the McDonald's shareholders meeting last week, and we're hoping by the start of the new legislative session to deliver 50,000 signatures from Wisconsin residents, communities big and small, saying that they support a $15 an hour minimum wage. So if you have sister parishes and churches that are supportive of this movement and you would like to help us collect those cards, we'll make sure that we get them to folks. But again, collecting those cards, letting our elected officials know that we're standing for a different economy, right? Not for a piecemeal solution or to simply make people less poor, but to actually build and live in the country and the economy that that we set out for and that we actually believe in. So thank you all so much. And,
Can I add a little bit what you're speaking? It's one of my experiences right now. I'm on my workers' compensation right now. I'm in a situation, and I've been looking for another job, and they're offering me $8, $7.25, that kind of stuff. So a lot of people, when I heard that, a lot of people don't want to start working with $8. They want to keep in working compensation as long as they can, and that's the best for the economy. Their money, they can use it for something else, not to spend like that and do nothing. Sit down on the chair on the couch, do something else. So that's why it's good to have a raise the minimum wage, $15. If they have a $15 start, I can go back to work because I can afford it to pay my mortgage. Otherwise, I'm not going to afford it to pay my mortgage because I'm not going to make it, not even the ones that I collected right now. They're gonna pay me less money. Why are they gonna, why are they gonna go to work for them, my money? They're only gonna pay me more for do nothing. That's why the economy is so changed like that. And if you do it that way, minimum wage $15, a lot of people are gonna be back to work. And if you do something for the economy, right?
Yes.
And then one more comment from Mary, and then we'll open up for discussion.
Yes. I just wanted to add onto all of this. The movement and the striking for us, it's not just about $15 an hour. It's about a living wage. We want to be able to live. It's not so much as 15 because if you do the statistics, it really is supposed to be $25 an hour.
Yes,
So $15 is nothing what we're asking for. We're just asking to live. We don't want to bankrupt nobody. We're not trying to get in nobody's pocket. But I would love to come to somebody's table eat their dinner, though.
Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers. We're going to have a little discussion in a minute here. Before I forget, I want to remind everyone we've got a sign-in sheet. And so what I'm hoping is this is not simply an educational event, but an opportunity for us to kind of keep thinking about how to network and work on these issues. So make sure you do that before you leave. And if you put a little star next to it, then I will contact you as someone that should be contacted to work on things. So that would be cool. This is actually, so we had a series of these kinds of events now. And I also want to thank Andrew Musgrave again for all of his fine work on this. So I didn't really introduce myself very well, but this is the third kind of event I've organized kind of partially for this parish. We've done some work on immigration. And I'm actually the advocacy ministry coordinator, according to Bob Schulke, and I forgot to tack out the title. So I'll do that. But, so thinking about this, maybe just all of you come up and we can all just stand up here awkwardly. And then if people have questions to direct to any of us, we can just have a discussion.
Oh, you don't want to answer questions?
Ask
It's
questions.
got a whole list of questions there.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And the Raise Up Wisconsin, how much backing are you getting from SEIU?
We are getting a lot. For folks who don't know what SEIU is, it's the Service Employees International Union. And so sort of the history of the movement is that it started with 200 fast food workers in New York who were actually members of a group like Wisconsin Jobs Now called New York Communities for Change. And they all were living in public housing together. So they were all actually working on a campaign to end stop and frisk, which is the policy of just sort of, patting down people walking down the street, when they started talking about their workplaces. And, many of them were working for the same franchise owners. And so they called in SEIU and let them know, here's what's going on. And he's now passed away, but a guy named John Kess had this idea to try to bring them out on strike. And when they said it at the time, there were no resources for it, and people actually thought that they were like nuts, right? So they were like, you could try this, but don't expect anything to come out of it. And what came out of it was the most attention that workers trying to organize have gotten probably since the big manufacturing plant organizations of the 30s. And so SEIU invested, I believe, somewhere around $8 million in 2014 in order to escalate those strikes. And it went from one place, New York, to 8 cities. Milwaukee was one of the original 8 cities because WJN existed and because our membership base is primarily low-wage workers. And then in the third strike, from those 8 cities, it went up to 90 cities, and the last strike was over 200 cities and 6 continents. Every continent except for Antarctica had low-wage workers striking. So the original investment from SEIU was about $8 million, but since then we've actually been able to raise money not just from labor unions, but also foundations who support community organizing, and then the workers themselves. And so, like Voces de la Frontera, WJN is a membership organization. We ask people to be sustaining dues-paying members at $10 a month. So the workers who are organizing in our worker organizing committee are also dues-paying members of our organization, like Miss Mary, who sits on the board of WJN.
And where did you get your education, the college levels?
So undergraduate, I went to University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas. Incarnate Word Sisters, good place. And then, much to the chagrin of my dad, I was not Jesuit educated for graduate school, and he feels that that's a great deficiency in my education. I got accepted to Marquette, but they gave me no money, so I went to University of Kentucky for grad school.
Did you get some of your education from your parents too?
Yeah, so I grew up in an activist family, as you know.
She just used the initials JW.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, my daughter stopped.
WJN,
Yeah.
Wisconsin Jobs, it's Wisconsin Jobs Now.
Okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you feel the support of the media in any way?
The support that I feel since I've been in the movement and on strikes, I also did the CD, which is civil disobedience. I went to jail. I was one of the first ones that got arrested. We shut down Miller Parkway. We shut it down on purpose. I was the first one to run out there and stop traffic. I stood my ground. Yes, I feel much support from the media, because if it wasn't for the media, you people wouldn't know. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the media.
Wasn't that the same demonstration that Gwen Moore attended? I
Yes,
think she got arrested.
I was right next to Gwen.
She's our assembly
What was
person.
the outcome of your court hearing on that?
There were no charges. We just got a disobedient ticket, which we had lawyers already to take care of that. Before we did this, believe me, it was well planned, because I don't like jails. when it comes to doing something wrong, you do it, I watch, you know, and then I'm running, you know. No. But we did this just to let the CEOs know that we mean business. Without us, there is no them. They have to train and train and train and train. What about us that's already there? We deserve better pay. I wear this shirt proudly.
Yeah.
Because I am worth more.
Now, you've also done some disobedience proposals.
I have to do some disability, this one of the most, threat to the medians. You know, for now, the medians focus on me because unactively, reactively. Also, I want to do disability that when people behind me, they can come and follow me. And I do disability because there's more medians, people watching you more, and that's why you be more strong to be active.
But also because it's the tradition of our movements, right? So there are a lot of things that are quote unquote illegal, right, that still are immoral and unright. And so when we look at, you know, whether it's the civil rights movement or the women's suffrage movement or even just, you know, the desegregation movements here in Milwaukee, right, the tradition of those movements is to put your body, right, and your faith on the line, so to speak, to change those unjust laws. And so we have workers doing the same thing. Yes, is it legal to pay somebody $7.25 when you made $5 billion last year? Sure, it's legal, but it's still immoral.
But please don't forget all the groundwork the labor movement's been doing
Yes.
for the last 100 years.
Oh,
To
for
build
sure.
this up, especially in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
For sure.
That's one of the places.
But that's what we're here for everyone to join together. We need togetherness here in Milwaukee. We're too separated. Everybody want to do their own thing. We need to come together. We need to rise.
Everybody wants to be the leader.
Yes, nobody wants to be the engines,
That's right.
you know?
That doesn't go away.
Yeah,
What happened to that strike with Palermo Pizza? Did that die?
Well, after the Palermo Pizza strike,
Talking about the
Well,
one that we did with
okay.
Palermo.
we a couple of people go back to work. Not all of us, because some people that have not documentation right,
Okay.
but the documentation, they cannot put it back to work. But they give you some kind of, money, you know, like they give you some kind of amount of money.
But there's no union, correct?
There's no union, there's no union, but try.
And to speak up on what he's saying, we have had quite a few people because of us being in this movement and people stepping on us like they have. We have had quite a few people that have lost their jobs, and we've tried to, you know, do what we could, but we can only do so much without the help of the community.
And I believe what happened in Palermo's Pizza, what happened is that there was two unions
Yeah.
tried to get in. That's why they stood up.
That's
You know, the one union that was, they get over it, that was better. But the fight two different unions, and the fight people outside, that's bad. And the government looking bad.
I mean, I think it's also about leadership though and who we elect. Like, you know, really quickly when that fight took on, there were a lot of our elected officials who wanted to stand and say this is a fine, upstanding, you know, family company. And nobody denies the fact that their family is upstanding, but they still, you know, they took millions of dollars in public money to build that factory and to clean that land up. And, you know, we didn't actually require that they pay living wages at the end of that. And now we're getting ready to, you know, we're on the eve of a decision about how many millions of dollars the county and the city are going to put into redeveloping the Bradley Center. And yet we still don't have a single commitment that of those 10,000 jobs that they're telling us are going to be created, a single one of them is going to pay a living wage. And so I think that, you know, we have the responsibility of demanding our elected officials understand what a living wage is, and when they are using our money, that they require living wages be paid.
all right, we have a few hands up, so,
The gentleman, he's been had his hands
okay,
up.
why don't you go first and then you two?
Yeah, I'm really impressed with all these issues. I mean, not only the title, it really speak to my heart. why can we, and the area addition with regard to Catholic social teaching was exemplary. I mean, tonight I was brief, but yet it showed the basis for all what we're doing. How come we can't work more effectively as archdioceses? We have certain select representatives. I don't know if they go one-on-one to certain representatives in Madison or what. Why can't we as a Catholic people hear about these issues in the pew? And I'm sure a lot of people won't do anything, but there's a lot of social justice-minded people out there who are attending Mass, who if they knew these issues, they would come to your aid and to your side, whether it regard to writing or voting, writing to congressmen or representatives or whatever. I mean, we feel quite powerless. I mean, these are timely issues, the employment, the representation, union rights, fair wage and fair, and pensions, etc., that all go with work. We have a labor history with regard to the Pope's teaching, but yet we're sitting here like nothing has happened. There's a communication gap that needs to be addressed. I mean, I don't know if it means going to the Archbishop or what's going on there or something like that.
Let me answer your question. Two things I would say. One, the Archdiocese clearly does have work to do to improve our messaging on Catholic social teaching. As Joan pointed out in that book about the best kept secret of Catholic social teaching, that's a common thing that happens, and that's not a good thing. It shouldn't be a secret. And so we have a lot of work to do to improve that and to improve the distribution of those ideas, this awareness across the Archdiocese. But the second thing that I want to mention, it's a hopeful thing, a couple hopeful things, and I mentioned this the other night at one of the other presentations. At the Synod, they came up with 3 big areas that the Catholic Church needs, the Archdiocese needs to improve on, and one of those 3 areas is on social justice. And not only as an Archdiocese, but also a very specific presence from the Archbishop to lead us as an Archdiocese to be more involved and better leaders in these areas of social justice. And so, to that end, 2 things have happened that I see are a direct result of this synod. The first of them is that they're forming a commission, this archdiocesan-wide, of leaders in the social justice movement to come together and talk about what are the very pressing issues in our community and how, which ones should we be involved in and how can we be good partners in the community to do that. And so there are a number of people across the Archdiocese, myself included, who are going to be coming together starting next month to look at what the Archdiocese is going to be doing to further and deepen our presence as far as social justice goes. The second piece, and this is somewhat to the chagrin of our family of parishes, I'm joking a little bit, but Father Tim Kitsky, who's the second of our pastors along with Father Mike, has just been named as the Vicar General for Urban Ministry in Milwaukee, and specifically just in the city of Milwaukee. And so what the Archbishop did just last month is said, we have been, not specifically, but we've been woefully probably lacking in our presence in the Central City, and so we need to be back in there and working on these very rights of work and of racism and economic injustice and social injustice in these areas. And so Father Tim has been kind of charged with establishing a presence in the city of Milwaukee and saying, how can we be present? How can we be partners? How can we work together with faith communities, with community groups that are really involved and have been fighting this fight in a more profound and impactful way than what we've been doing thus far. And so he's going to be doing that in very tangible ways. And if you think about the hierarchy in our diocese, to have a vicar general means you speak for the archbishop, and you're one of the kind of 3 vicars we have, 4 vicars. So that's a cabinet level position, right? And it didn't exist before, but now it does.
May I, so this is very hopeful, but I think also my sort of paradigm on this is I think so that there's a lot of potential here for where we could go with that, and I think we should keep talking about that and keep working on that. But I think also we have this real tendency as Catholics to be like, why isn't the hierarchy doing anything? Which is kind of not the way it works anyway. Like I'm thinking about my last slide up there, that like we are Catholic social teaching. Like Catholic social teaching doesn't happen because the Pope gets an idea. Catholic social teaching happens because of social movements. So I think we need to be thinking more about organizing the laity, you know? And I think if the Archdiocese has resources they're willing to devote and help with that, I think that's all to the better. But I think we need to be thinking about like how can we organize the laity, you know, not waiting for the institution of the church to do it, because, and this is not, you know, like some sneaky thing I'm suggesting. This is our vocation. Like this is what the
That's
popes
right.
have said. Like we have a vocation in the world,
That's right.
a secular vocation as lay people. So we need to be thinking about that too, I think.
I would say the progressive movement was organized through barn parties, right? So basically, people went in their little, you know, all around the state, and they had, you know, Friday night barn parties, which was like fish and beer, and that's how they got people engaged in the movement, right? So I think that there is something very powerful about this idea that we are exactly who we've been waiting for.
All right, so in the corner and then Rosemary.
Thanks for speaking. My question is, you guys consider, you talk about corporations and, you know, obviously they take it to exploit people, but what about the small businesses? Can they handle a $15 an hour wage, or maybe in the future higher? How does that affect things, and is that sustainable? And if we have an economic downturn in the future, can they sustain like that?
So that, I love that question. So a couple things. I mean, first of all, so although it's rarely talked about, the majority of small businesses already pay above the minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
They do that because they know that their bread and butter is having really talented, friendly, engaged employees that stay for a long time, right? They can't actually afford the high cost of turnover that happens in a fast food industry, for instance. So that's, you know, there was a poll that came out ahead of the last election that was just small business owners, and I think about 68% of small business owners were in favor of raising the minimum wage. In terms of the economy, it doesn't happen in isolation, right? That we're a set of economic forces. The majority of work, about 2/3 of work in this country, happens through large corporations, multinational corporations. So if you raise wages for those workers, then what happens is those workers go out and pretty much immediately turn around and spend their money in local economies. So one of the reasons, for instance, that Wisconsin has stalled so much and is lagging behind our neighboring states is because we actually, our workers have no disposable income. We took the disposable income away from what was essentially our middle class, our public sector employees, when we cut their wages and benefits through Act 10. Then we haven't raised the minimum wage. We're still at the federal minimum, and so underpaid employees then also can't go out and spend that money in the economy. And so when you have an economy that is 70% consumer driven, and you have people who actually can't go out and buy anything, your economy stalls. So this idea that then we'd raise wages, not just for underpaid workers up to 15, but then for everybody on top of that would then see an increase, right? You're talking about people who then tomorrow are going to go out and buy that pair of shoes that they've been putting off for their kids, that pair of pants that they've been continuously lowering the hem on, or maybe go to the movies, do something crazy like go to the movies or go out to dinner, right? And that helps spur local small businesses. The other thing that I think is very relevant is that the majority of fast food work happens in franchises, right? So McDonald's, for instance, gave us a paltry $1 raise, but they only did it for their corporate stores, which is 10% of their stores. So about 90,000 workers got a raise, and about a little under 2 million workers got nothing. And the secret with these franchises is that these agreements are completely unfair to the franchise owner. So if you're not a mega franchise owner, meaning you've got 10 or 15 stores, then you're basically getting screwed. And so part of our, sorry for the language, part of our strategy now is also to talk to franchise owners about standing up as collectively together and trying to force these corporations to renegotiate their franchise contracts so they're more fair to the franchise owners.
Rosemary.
So I have a question for Lauro. You talked about the fact that you found in the work that you do that people who are undocumented are paid lower wages than people who are here legally. Have you encountered any companies who are willing to pay a fair wage to undocumented workers where you've gone in or you've worked or bosses have worked to advocate for that?
Well, we stand up, especially when you collective bargaining, we try to be, and get everybody the same wage. The only way you can do it is to have a union. And everybody, even legal or not legal, they got a right to have a union. And they're gonna fight for you on the collective bargaining table to have the same wages to everyone. If you have a union, you have a right, so they're gonna pay less money out of people legal.
I mean, that's why folks really need to watch the attack on prevailing wage. And I'm not happy about the way that some of the trades have decided to fight the attack on prevailing wage. I think it does scapegoat undocumented folks, but the point of prevailing wage is that when you're able to organize in a union, and everybody gets paid that wage. And so it's been a way to really lift up undocumented workers, and that attack on prevailing wage really is a way then to say, I'm gonna have someone doing the same job right next to a unionized worker who's gonna get paid more. The other thing to watch on that is temp work, right? So Master Lock, Quad Graphics, Palermo's, these are all companies who have a usually white, sometimes unionized workforce, working right beside workers of color, primarily Latino workers, who are being paid a temp wage, which is often, $5 to $10 less than what the unionized worker that they're doing the same job as are doing.
And I have even experienced where they were hired 16 going on 17 euros, long as they're getting ready to turn 17 or 17, before they turn 18, they only get paid $5.90. Yes.
See, the average, when you have a union or not union, it's like $4 a car. When you have a union, you gotta make more $4 an hour. And then if you don't have a union, you make $4 less. Make a sample like that. So, I'm not afraid right now, I'm on a job right now, because people making money, they think they're not gonna lower their wages. No.
Right.
When they lose the union, they're gonna lower their wages.
Absolutely.
Back up. And people, they don't believe, but I try to get to believe.
I think we have time for about 2 more questions.
It's not a question as much as a statement about how language can be used against us. I mean, lots of people aren't gonna know what prevailing wage means. Or this idea of right to work, which sounds like it's a perfect thing, but it's a turning of the language against people. And I don't know how to deal with that.
Oh, we gotta reorganize on the workplace. We gotta talk to people, the right to work is not gonna make a change.
Right.
They
Because
still
at
do,
my-
they still fighting.
At my job, when they first heard the right to work, oh, I got the right to work, I'm gonna work. Do you know what the right to work means? You know, if they don't like you, you out the door. You know why you walking around here all happy thinking your job is, no, it's not safe.
Yeah, right.
I think one of the things we have to do is stop using their language, right? So I don't say right to work, I say Walker's wage theft bill, because that's really what it is. It steals wages from people.
Right.
A good example of that is Senator Darling's bill to essentially privatize MPS. She's calling it the Milwaukee Opportunities Program or something like that. But really what it is building a Jim Crow district within the city of Milwaukee. It's a district that, a white county executive that is, accountable to the taxpayers of Franklin and New Berlin, gets to come in and oversee and set the rules for a majority African-American set of schools. So it's really a revival of Jim Crow, and so that's what we're calling it. And Charlie Sykes really likes it. He tweets me all the time and tells me how much he likes Jim Crow. No, I'm just kidding, he does it. But I think we have to do that. We have to say what it is they're actually doing to us.
In front, and then Marcia.
Okay. Okay. Should I go?
You go.
Okay. So mine is actually backing up more to the theory piece from the Catholic social teaching. In Librorum Exercens, does Pope John Paul talk at all about how the formerly labeled criminal should be treated as within society? How their right to work is impacted?
excellent, but I can't remember anything directly, but I mean, it would at least fall under the idea that everyone, that there's a right to universal employment.
I
So-
can mention something about what she said.
Yeah.
It's like in your workplace, well, I use in my workplace, if somebody say, you can say, like, they're not happy to you, nothing, you want to do not refuse. And you still gonna force you collecting money, you're gonna force you collecting money. And like if you force somebody, right now, with the right to work, he said, you're still gonna pay the union no matter what happens, no matter if it's the law like that. And then when that's when the criminal come to you because you now have to force the people to get into the union. If somebody say, I don't wanna be in the union, you say, no, you have to. You have to be in the union. So you force the person, and then you can be criminal.
I think also there's been this really important campaign to ban the box.
Right, that's what I was thinking specifically.
Yeah,
And you know, I'm sorry to be an interrupter, but also like how the way that people who have been criminals in the past and now are trying to make their way back into society. When they're denied work, then, you know, that increases the recidivism rate. So what, how would we approach that?
There is a really powerful campaign
That
going on right now called the 11 by 17. And the Catholic Church has been really good in supporting that to end mass incarceration and try to give people, mainly, I think it's, I don't know if anyone knows more about
To
it.
reduce the prison population by 2017, mainly by changing our drug laws for non-violent offenders, and also our juvenile laws. So this was actually one of the few victories last year that was bipartisan, is it used to be automatically, if you're 17, you're waived into adult court, and you would have to file a motion to be waived back in the juvenile court. And part of that campaign was to say you should actually automatically be in juvenile court and be waived into adult court if the crime is fitting. And so that was one of the campaigns. One thing I do want to say about that really quickly is just that folks may have heard this stat, but we now have more African Americans under supervision or incarcerated in this country than we ever had that enslaved during slavery. And one of the sort of effects of that is prison labor. And so you may not even know that, you know, the fruit that you're eating in your fruit salad, the underwear that you're wearing if you shop at Victoria's Secret or Kmart, the person who is calling you, asking you about your credit card information or about booking a trip may actually be doing prison labor. And so they're paying 60 cents on the dollar per hour, essentially 60 cents per hour to folks in prison to do all various types of labor, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. For instance, the city of Boston, when it got hammered with all that snow, with the 6 feet of snow, they used prison laborers to dig the city out instead of what would have been AFSCME-represented tow truck drivers.
Right. And then the other piece too is that within the PIC itself is like that whole sub-poverty wage industry of service workers that would likely be impacted by being, you know, having their wages raised to $15 an hour. So
it's 7:30 and people are going to start winding out for dinner. So why don't we have, if you guys have maybe, do you have any quick announcements you can make about how people can get involved? Do you have upcoming events you could mention? And then maybe if you have anything on your mind, and then we can kind of informally make one eat food if we want. Is there anything coming up people should know?
Yes, tomorrow night we're having, because you know they're talking about separating Milwaukee public schools. Okay, tomorrow night we're having a rally at our Avenue School.
Which is just 24th and Burleigh.
24th and Burleigh. It's for the support of the children. We're thinking about the children. They don't deserve what they're getting, you know, and too many of them is getting off into the wrong things. It's time for them to see their parents and their grandparents, their aunties, their uncles, to show them that they know that they deserve better. So come on out and join us. You know, let them know that our kids don't deserve to be treated the way they're being treated.
what time is that?
It's at 4:30. And so the easiest way just to stay up to date with us is to go to wisconsinjobsnow.org, and you can sign up for information. You can also sign up to become a member right there if you want to be a member. But you can sign up for information, and then you'll get action alerts. If you sign up on text messages, then whenever we have like a worker in distress that we need to go support, you'll get a text message saying, can you meet us here, those sorts of things. And then this is something we love to do, is actually coming to talk to groups and changing the perception about what this campaign is and who's leading it. And so if you have a group that you'd like us to speak to, you can again email that form, and we can set up a presentation with other workers.
I have we need to have more members in the Voces de la Frontera, okay, especially the, all the kind of people now who speak Spanish, also everybody, so you're welcome to be. You can fill that form. It's only about $30 a year, and they help the organization for $30 a year. So I'm here to organize to be a member in Voces de la Frontera, whatever we want to be.
And we're not only trying to organize the north side, we need the south side, we need the east side, we need the west side, we need all the sides. All four sides, let's meet.
The other thing too, I was supposed to be a parish liaison between Voces de la Frontera and this parish. There is something called the New Sanctuary Movement, which is
That's why I was going to mention, they're going to start in this. We always have meetings Tuesdays.
on Tuesdays.
Yeah,
Okay,
and,
good. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And that's a church right in, what is it, 27 and Mineral?
Good.
It's a Lutheran school. It's a Lutheran church.
Yeah,
Please remember that.
I've been going to Sanctuary for a while. I think the first part of the month, they have vigils.
Okay.
Okay, and Tuesday nights, for people who don't want to show up in front of what they call ICE, or the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which is practically right across the street from me. They meet, I think about 6:30 over at Ascension Lutheran Church, which is on Layton Boulevard. It's about 2 or 3 blocks south of National. Okay, but then the Thursday, immediately following, they have an outside vigil in front of the ICE office, which is over on 415 East. Well, that's my address. It's the 3 block of East Knapp Street.
Thank you.
And I think that includes kind of a lockup for people that have been rounding up to deport. So it's real immediate stuff.
And our goal is to have an immigration reform for all, and now only DAPA and DACA. That's our goal, so that's what we're going to fight for. Okay?
And last but least, these are our streets, let's take them back.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.